The voyages of the USS Titan under the command of Captain Riker were off to something of a rocky start. Diverted to the neutral zone and brokering peace in the wake of Shinzon's death. Just after making the way through that, the Titan found itself thrown thousands of light years from Federation space, dealing with a genetic offshoot of humanity in another universe. The return to Federation space, and to a normal charting mission of the Gum Nebula, seems like something of a return to normal operations, at least on the surface. The horrors that lay within are more violent and ethically complex than anyone expected. Watch Captain William T. Riker balance the Prime Directive, animal poaching, the rights of sentient creatures, and cultural non-interference in the morality tale that is Star Trek Titan: Orion's Hounds, written by Christopher L. Bennett. This is the third video in our series exploring the voyages of the lunar-class USS Titan, based on the book series that launched after the release of Star Trek Nemesis. While appearances in shows like Star Trek Lower Decks and Star Trek Picard have branded these so-called relaunch novels as non-canon, there's still quite the timeline to explore, especially when we're all waiting for new episodes of Star Trek. Now this is the third book, so if you're not up to date, you can either go back and watch our previous two videos on book 1 and book 2, you can find a playlist linked in the video description below, or you can watch on and enjoy this story. As always, we encourage you to read these books for yourself to get the most enjoyment out of them. A link to purchase the novel is down below. Okay, let's go. Welcome to Trek Central, I'm your host, Captain Jack. If you're enjoying our Star Trek novel recaps, let us know in the comments. The team and I are really enjoying this little book club adventure we've got going on here. Of course, if you want to support the Trek Central channel, press that join button and consider becoming a YouTube member to get early access to these videos, as well as the chance to decide our next video. Sounds great? Okay, engage. After the ends of Star Trek Nemesis, the USS Titan, under the command of William T. Riker, is taken off course and sent on an emergency mission to broker peace in Romulan space. The ship engages the Remans and Romulans of all political creeds to something of an understanding, also aided by the Klingons at the final moment. Instead of a simple trek back to Federation space, the Titan is convinced to aid a Romulan ally, Denatra, in scanning a subspace anomaly that a fleet of Romulan warbirds had vanished through. This anomaly turns out to be a gateway to a pocket universe, sending the Titan and the Romulan warbird Valdor over 100,000 light years from home. Lost in space, they encounter a genetic offshoot of humanity who have been living there for generations. However, a refugee crisis soon ensues, with the sentient universe imploding. Escaping with the starship barely intact, some Romulan backstabbing, and as many refugees as you can fit in a glorified asteroid, the Titan manages to find the least bad outcome and escape back home. After being dragged on all these adventures, propelled by plot cliffhangers and covered in 2 other videos that again you can find here on the channel, the Titan finally embarks on what was supposed to be her maiden voyage, the charting of the Gum Nebula. This is a simple exploration mission, properly charting some strange new worlds out there in the Star Trek universe, where anything could be around the corner. Some real frontier space exploration, finally. So, with 2 missions already under the belt, let's see what awaits the Titan on her intended maiden voyage with the 3rd Star Trek Titan adventure. The novel opens with a brief prologue, featuring a creature out in space crying out in pain. They talk of love and kin. It's confirmed within a couple of chapters that it's from the perspective of the jellyfish creatures from the episode Encounter at Farpoint. They're being poached and feature prominently throughout the novel. Much like the sentient Red King before them, it's cool that the new author still finds time to lend chapters and proper perspectives to the less sentient, harder to properly communicate with parts of the cast. Our adventure picks up in the earnest about 2 weeks after the events of the Red King. Again, you can check out our more detailed video for a recap of that book. It's Stardate 57137.8, and the USS Titan settles for extensive repairs and a mission debriefing at Starbase 185. I do love when the book does little captain's logs like that, because who doesn't like imitating a Star Trek captain while reading? Come on, I can't be the only one. There is a fascinating discussion between Troy and Dr. Ree about the limits of tolerating cultural differences. Sort of the paradox of tolerance, whether you can find peace in tolerating the intolerant. But if certain intolerances are to be built into cultural norms, where should the line be drawn? It seems like a nothing discussion, but at the same time it ties into the book's themes really well. In the first chapter, they foreshadow the moral quandary that the novel's built itself around. The Gum Nebula charting is a simple enough mission. so organised that they're meeting the USS Ganymede on another side. Who knows what they're going to be encountering out there? It's a big part of space after all. All is going fairly routine until Troy is met with a nightmare of dying creatures desperately crying out for help. It's bloody and psychologically disturbing, and like many other Next Generation stories, the plot is driven forward by Deanna Troi sensing something out in space. However, it's not just Troi who sensed something. She's not the only telepath aboard the ship, although she's definitely the worst affected. Mr. Tuvok is a little distressed on the bridge. Their distress allows Riker to redirect the Titan slightly to the direction of their telepathic signals. It's here that they meet up with the jellyfish from Encounter at Farpoint from earlier on. We've not seen this species since they were held prisoner at Farpoint Station and liberated by the USS Enterprise D on one of her very first missions. So it's nice to finally see them in their natural habitat. One problem though, they're under attack. The jellyfish are being slaughtered, tortured, and their corpses reanimated and being flown around as ships to continue the hunt. A little bit gruesome. That's what they call it, the hunt. A bipedal race known as the Pacriel hunt the jellies for spore, something built into their culture. After a bit of a firefight between the Pacriel and the USS Titan, a small delegation from the Titan is invited aboard one of these ships, specifically the one from the Quaitilar clan. The names in these books can get a little excessively alien, but those are the important ones. We're going to hear from Kuihibra a lot, as he kind of becomes the go-to ambassador of the Pacriel for the Titan. As a little disclaimer there, I'm not quite sure if I got any of those names correct. The enemy force's ships are dead jellyfish, referred to as skymounts. It's integral to the way they protect themselves and navigate the universe. As a species, they justify it through respecting their corpses, hunting only so much as the jellies are able to reproduce. Without this sacred practice, which they refer to as the hunt, they do not see a way to support themselves. Back aboard the Titan, the crew ponder whether or not the jellies' distress and mass murder would qualify them for Federation asylum. Much like how a previous character from another book found himself able to request asylum after saving Tuvok in the events of taking wing. Now, while the jellies exist in the Federation's favour, their inability to communicate makes it difficult. Although the Titan crew finds themselves wanting to help, they're not sure how far the Prime Directive would allow them to interfere in this new species culture. Wanting to further study the jellies' origins, they search for jelly migrations. It's an opportunity for Tuvok to do some Voyager fan service, name-dropping energy-based aliens that the ship encountered in the Delta Quadrant. There's something special about the species in the Gum Nebula, this being the formation ecosystems having the perfect building blocks for species to develop and thrive in interstellar space. There could well be more Cosmozoa life out there, and as the Titan hopes, a non-sentient alternative that the Pacriel could hunt instead of their sentient star jellies. The Titan arrives at a star system with a single Cosmoan species, feeding on carbon, hydrogen, oxygen, and nitrogen released by the star. They figure that this species isn't communicating, just leeching energy off of a star. The sort of thing that both the Pacriel and the jellies would have been hunting where they could, if only for the stability of the universe. Meanwhile, Deanna Troi, Tuvok, and the rest of the Titan's telepaths, including O'Reilly Mailer, who will become important later, form a group to reach out to the jellies. It's better to find them, try to offer assistance without totally annihilating Starfleet's regulations for cultural communications. Interestingly, the jellies remember Troi and Riker from Farpoint Station. It's a nice callback that shows that while Farpoint was a single mission for the Enterprise D, it was everything to them. Like the last encounter though, this one turns a little ugly after this meeting is intercepted again by the Pacriel. Thankfully though, the Titan's able to avoid most of the bloodshed by getting most of the jellies out, all except an injured one that they keep in a sort of a tractor beam hold. The firefight with the Titan fighting off a Pacriel forces First Officer Christine Vale to question Riker's position on cultural interference. Riker hopes that they can find a compromise, a sort of spatial harmony, and wants the Titan to help mediate that path. Looking at Riker's diplomatic successes in the past couple of books and bringing the ship down to its last legs in combat, it's not hard to see why he might want a more peaceful solution. While following the jellies to their star system, Jaza takes the time to study the detailed scans of the one that they're towing. Corridors, lights, replication, warp abilities, all built into their bodies. He wonders if these capabilities evolved, if they were man-made, or proving the jelly's intelligence once and for all. Although this opportunity doesn't last forever, with the Titan eventually arriving at the mating ground of the jellies, this is where the book does something really magical, where the Titan witnesses the jellies' reproduction, passing traits and DNA from one person to another. a collective creation until they make the perfect product for the next generation. It's a real new life stuff that's really nice and a really cool little scene in Star Trek. The way the Jellies create their young, mourn their dead, how they terraform a planet to look after their young is just beautiful, even for a book. It's a planet in a system that Troy decides to name Kestra, a name that may be familiar to fans of Star Trek Picard. And if I told you that Riker and Troy close out this chapter by making love in a turbolift, you might be able to guess what might be coming in the series' future. And you'd be right, kind of. Just keep on, this timeline gets fun. Unfortunately, the bliss doesn't stay long. The Pacquiao are very determined to continue the hunt, tracking down a cluster of 13 Jellies. The battle's about to get real. The fact that Bennett spends time with both the Pacquiao and the Titan, and even showing some of the Jellies' perspective, is a great way to balance out all sides of the issue. While Riker's struggle is obviously at the front, it's nice to see things from the villain's perspective. As a result of their psychic connection earlier in the Gestalt, they pick up the distress call from the Jellies being attacked by the enemy forces. Not quite wanting to intervene for prime directive concerns and endangering the cultural practices of the Pacquiao, Riker reluctantly has Tuvok removed from the bridge and temporarily detained. Which turns out to not be so effective, as the almost possessed Tuvok transfers his knowledge of the deflector shields to the Jellies, teaching them the secrets of avoiding the bioenergy stings of the Pacquiao's sky mounts. It's an upgrade that nobody saw coming. The Jellies finally adapt, and what does this have on the hunt? Well, we're afforded an interlude on a Pacquiao sky mount with the clan chief. A seemingly normal hunt, respecting the balance, not going out to kill too many. There's only one problem. With the shields, the Jellies are totally immune to everything the Pacquiao can throw at them. The end result? For the first time, the Jellies decimate the other fleet. All the ships and sky mounts in a violent glow that engulfs and destroys everything. The Pacquiao's ambassador reaches out to Captain Riker and tells him of the death and destruction inadvertently caused by the Titan's rogue transmission. O'Reilly and Tuvok, in particular, are both placed on a suicide watch amongst their distress from the fallout of their actions. The consequences live on, with the Pacquiao now without sky mounts to fight off the imbalanced Cosmosonian life, the cloud shimmers from earlier. Riker, however, refuses to accept that there's no alternative to murder, leading to an argument that ends with the ambassador beaming himself over to the Titan and forcing Riker's hand. He'll either help the Pacquiao restore the balance, or the ambassador kills Riker and destroys the Titan. Deanna Troi, Dr. Ree, and a small landing party are sent to the nearby Vormin space station, discovering the depths of the Pacquiao Empire, assisting in the aftermath of the damage. It's here that they get a glimpse into how uneasy the Pacquiao's alliances are, especially in light of how they're no longer able to guarantee the safety of those worlds thanks to the absence of their dead Jelly warships. Now, all is going reasonably well for a while, until some familiar monster shows up, referred to by the people of the Gum Nebula as Branchers. For us in the audience, it's the Crystalline Entity, another mysterious alien from earlier episodes of The Next Generation. Beings of pure destruction, but can only be defeated when they're ground into dust. The Titan tries to be a science vessel, luring one away using the deflector, but it doesn't deter enough from trying to eat the station. The Titan ends up shooting it, but did Riker do all he could? The crystalline entities are definitely sentient, but is their right to life worth sacrificing whole worlds for? For once, could the Pacquiao be correct? Their balance, as violent as it is, seems to be holding things in place. Still trying to make a change though, Riker tries to convince the Pacquiao to use live mounts, ending the hunt, and creating a sort of symbiosis. An idea that the Pacquiao are far from receptive of. Meanwhile, the species that the Pacquiao are in an alliance with see the hunter's superstition, and are more relaxed into this new idea. Jaza, in particular, likens his Bajoran heritage to the Jellies' treatment, drawing parallels between the Cardassians and the Pacquiao. It's some powerful stuff, a suitable aside when you've got a Pacquiao hunter, called Sahira, loitering around the Titan and trying to gain info about the Jellies from their systems, fantasizing about killing Captain Riker. With a wannabe murderer, the Ambassador, openly threatening to kill Captain Riker, the situation of the Titan is far from ideal. It's also now officially negotiation time. Some of the visiting parties from the Vormin station are even uncomfortable around the ship's carnivores, offended at even the slightest mention of eating animal flesh. There's a decent conversation about animal rights, which kind of refocuses the book's ideas after getting muddled over the past few chapters. The now invulnerable Jellies are brought to the negotiation table. When it comes to their legacies and the life of the other species aided by the Pacquiao, their instability that this rift has created in the nebula. Tuvok and Troy try to help interpret, but obviously taking precautions to not be possessed like last time. As this is a book, you can't quite imagine this, but how do you fit one of those big jellyfishes in a conference room? Just wondering. Launching a pilot program for using living jellies for ships, there's talks between the Pacuiel of integrating with a living ship. For starters, assuming that a jelly is benevolent and integrating upgrades into the bioengineering reproduction. It's hesitation, but come to the next chapter, we're 4 days into the training exercises, and all things are working okay. The Pacuiel and Jellies are coming into a nice working relationship, with the Pacuiel being affected hormonally by the Jellies, becoming a big emotional adjustment. The Jellies, however, are struggling with their fight or flight reactions, wanting to run away from any dangerous situation. Meanwhile, the rest of the Pacuiel conclave, fighting against Captain Riker's ideas, is trying to approve aggressive action against the Titan, at the very least stealing the shielding information by force. On one hand, the Ambassador argues that life can coexist with life, that the balance can't be restored by trying to recreate the past. Meanwhile, another member of the species insists that balance has failed, and for the future of the Pacuiel, the natural competition must resume. This interesting discussion is distracted by an attack from the crystalline entities. The Titan is caught in the middle, playing intermediary, trying to make sure things don't implode, which isn't exactly made easier by the Ambassador kidnapping Deanna Troi and escaping back to one of the Jelly ships. Certain destruction, with the captain's wife caught in the crosshairs. What follows isn't exactly explosive, but a nice revelation. The crystalline entities can only be controlled, with Laws talking to them nothing but an illusion back in the next generation. When the Titan's deflector beam was ineffective, it turns out the Jelly's bioengineered beams are anything but, with them capable of herding the entities around. The Ambassador needs some convincing, with Deanna Troi emphasizing that the Jelly's capacity for forgiveness, now combined, especially herding the entities, they could be a powerful ally. This starts him on creating a new covenant, entering into a new balance for this area of space, branded by the Pacuiel conclave as a disgrace to tradition. The younger generations, however, are more sympathetic, leaving the Ambassador with enough support to start a new society. And so, the USS Titan departs, or rather moves on with its original charting mission. A new balance in place, life and sentience being respected, and the old guard sure to die out eventually. Aureli Mala, resident exobiologist on the Titan's crew, see I told you they'd come back later, decides to stay behind with the Pacuiel, hoping to use their telepathic abilities to help deepen understandings between them and the Jellies. After 3 straight books of adventure, it looks like there's finally going to be a bit of a narrative gap. But with Captain Riker finally setting himself up to become a father, and juggling parenthood with the captaincy, the next book is still teed up nicely. The reader's not given a big explosive cliffhanger or a mission brief, but the series finally feels comfortable relying on the evolving domestic situation aboard the Titan. Set to explore how one could be both parent and captain, how it could change the perception of this relationship with Deanna Troi. It's going to be quite the shift of the status quo. It's going to be interesting to see the USS Titan adjust to a new balance in the same way that the Nebula has throughout the book. One thing's for sure, the road goes on, and for Captain Riker, duty calls. That was our summary of the 3rd Star Trek Titan novel, Orion's Hounds, by Christopher L. Bennett. It was nice to see the crew going on a mission that wasn't directly following up on Nemesis for a change. Including the Jellies from Encounter at Farpoint, and even the crystalline entity made for an interesting read. Seeing them in their natural habitats, and the unique ecosystem that the Pacuiel had constructed around them really lent into the new life and new civilizations, part of the Star Trek mantra. The fight of the less verbal and humanoid species was an obvious parallel to the plight of animal rights in our own society. While it never felt too heavy-handed or preachy, it did emphasize the importance of respecting life. While it had its shares of action, it ended in a sort of morality play which felt reminiscent of a Picard speech in a Next Generation episode. Riker really did learn from the best. The relationships among the crew are also growing more complex, with Jazi getting a lot more growth in the book, exploring his infatuation with Christine Vale. Most importantly, Riker and Troi are looking to become parents. We know this is what happens in the later canon timeline with Kestra and Thaddeus, but in this offshoot of a Star Trek timeline, anything could happen. But time doesn't stop for fatherhood, and the duties of a Titan captaincy continue ever on. The next book, Sword of Damocles, explores science and religion, where the Titan crew are forced to confront the balance between scientific truth, the unexplainable, and society's leap of faith. Look out for that video soon, it's sure to be exciting. If you want to keep up to date on the latest Star Trek news, lore and more, then make sure to hit that subscribe button to never miss a video from the team here at Trek Central. You can also follow us on social media or join our community Discord server. For now, I've been Captain Jack, thanks for watching and we'll see you next time. Live long and prosper, my friends.